Before we jump into the episode today, I want to share something with you from my heart. First of all, thank you so much for listening to the podcast. I really can't tell you how much your support means to me. We've been doing the podcast now for almost 4 years. I can't even believe it. And I'm so grateful for each and every single one of you that listens, shares an episode with your friends, sends me a DM or a text message letting me know how an episode resonated with you or any aha moments. Seriously, I couldn't be more grateful to be able to create this podcast. It has been such a blessing in my life, and I love hearing the ways it's been able to provide value in yours as well. One thing you might not know is how much work it takes to be consistent with a podcast. In fact, did you know that the majority of podcasts don't make it past episode number 10? And we are well beyond that. And it's just a lot thinking of the episodes, recording them, editing them, managing the guests, making sure that everything runs smoothly and gets uploaded consistently and regularly. And so that's why I have created an amazing opportunity for you to support the podcast monetarily. And in exchange for that, you will get exclusive premium subscriber content. So for as little as $3 a month, you can become a premium subscriber of the podcast. And every month I will upload new voice-guided workouts and breathwork meditation audio for you. So that way you can work out with me, coaching you in your ears. You can also take a moment to reduce your stress and relax and come down and ground down with one of my breathwork audios. So if that is on your heart to support the podcast for as little as $3 a month to become a premium podcast subscriber, I can't tell you how much that means to me and the growth of this podcast. I appreciate you. If you're interested, click the link in the description, become a premium podcast subscriber, new content every month, and while supplies last, I'll send you an exclusive podcast coffee mug so you can have your self-love and sweat coffee every morning. I appreciate you. Now let's get into the show. Welcome to Self-Love and Sweat, the podcast, the place where you'll get inspired to live your life unapologetically, embrace your perfect imperfections, break down barriers, and do what sets your soul on fire. I'm your host, Lunden Souza. Hey friend, it's me, Lunden Souza, online lifestyle transformation coach. I help people all over the world just like you who know they are meant for more, get their mind right and their body tight, and go from crazy busy to crazy happy. And hey, if it's our first time meeting, welcome. So happy to have you. And if you've been with us for a while, it's so great that you're here too. I'm really excited to share this episode of the Self-Love and Sweat podcast with you. Hey, welcome to the podcast. Today, we're going to talk all about reviving your healthy lifestyle. If you feel like things have been all over the place, or you're stuck or in a lull in a season of your life that you want to break through, and if you just feel like overall you need to be reminded and rejuvenated and revived a little bit when it comes to your healthy lifestyle and routines, this is for you. So just a reminder of who you are and who you want to be and what your goals are and what is important, right? So when we think of C.P.R, among many other things, this is over the heart, right? This is pressure over the heart. And when I think about this C.P.R acronym that I want to share with you today to help you revive your healthy lifestyle, I often will put my hands in a one over the other, crossing over the center of my chest, over to the left just a little bit, over my heart. And this can be a reminder for you to come back to that heart space, to come back to your intentions and what's important to you, even when life can, be seeming to throw all of its curveballs all at the same time. Whatever that might be for you in this moment that you need a little bit of reviving from, it's nice sometimes to have this moment to put our hands over our heart and just be like, okay, what do I need? What is important? So in the C.P.R. acronym, we're going to go through it, and you'll notice that you don't need anyone to do any of these things, right? This acronym C.P.R. doesn't require anyone or anything to get the job done. You don't need a person to be sure that they do this in order to make sure that you get this. It really is independent of any outside circumstance or person, which is great because we can't control that. We cannot control that. So let's jump right in. C.P.R. If you're taking notes, great. You can do that old-fashioned way on a piece of paper with a pen, or you can do it on your phone in notes. But tune in and jot down anything that might jump out and speak to you, because these podcasts are bite-sized and I feel like you can get some great aha moments out of them. So tune in, check in, and take some notes. So here we go. C.P.R. when it comes to reviving your healthy lifestyle. The C stands for core values. Core values. And that's really basically saying, what do you stand for? What's important to you? What are your non-negotiables? What does it mean to be you? What are your core beliefs and who you want to be as a person? What are the things that are so important to you and so part of who you are and so part of who you want to be, that you'll do these things and you'll adhere to these things even when no one is watching? Even when there's, nobody to double check or triple check, you want to show up as this person with these core values. Check back in with your core values. Okay. First step, coming back to what are my core values, right? I have my set of core values. I work on core values with my clients. I talk about core values on the podcast. I talk about core values are so important. And when we do them, of course, the intention is that we revisit them regularly. We consult them regularly. We allow them to be alive in our lives. And sometimes that works out great. And other times when we find ourselves all over the place and in need of this C.P.R., we might realize like, oh yeah, I haven't visited my core values in a while, or, X, Y, or Z that I've been doing is really incongruent with my core values. So no wonder I feel this way. No wonder I'm feeling off balance and I'm feeling those feelings of incongruence and something just felt off. Right? So our core values are super great. They're great ways, or core values is a great tool to help you set the rules to your game so that you can win. And I always revisit my core values. I always work on core values and revisit core values with my clients. It's very powerful. And we need to be reminded of the things that we say are part of our core values. And so if you haven't done them before, I highly encourage you do that. A list of no more than 10 core values, words that describe how you want to show up in the world. And it's just a really powerful activity. And maybe you've done it before. So if you've done it before, revisit your core values. I keep mine with me all the time. I have all 10 of them on sticky notes, and I would generally have them on my mirror. But because I've been traveling a lot, I live on the West Coast. My boyfriend lives on the East Coast. I've been traveling and exploring and having the opportunity to travel for work and do some in-person presentations and trainings. And so I just bring my core values with me on these sticky notes, and I'll just flip through them, or I'll put them on the mirror of where I'm at, or I'll lay them out on a table or on my bed just as a reminder. Hey, this is how I want to show up. This is important. So if you've never done it before, get to it. If you've done it before, revisit your core values and find new ways to incorporate them and remind yourself of them even more. Okay, that's the C, core values. P stands for perspective. And maybe you've heard me say this before. I got this from Trent Shelton, who's a really awesome speaker and author. He's just really motivating, really fires things up when he speaks. And I think I heard this speech that he did, 10 years ago or something. And it always stuck with me. And he said, your superpower or your perspective can be your superpower or your prison. And so check your perspective. Have you found yourself in a downward spiral? And can you switch it to an upward spiral? Have you put yourself in a perspective prison where you have the key, right? This can be sometimes challenging to hear because it's hard for us to think in a different way or like in a new way outside of what we've experienced. But the thing is that we're thinking and our perspective is a certain way, and that's leading to our experience, and our experience is fostering our perspective. And I think that when we can realize that our perspective is malleable, it's so powerful. When we can realize our perspective is more like Play-Doh than a rock, so it's not so solid. You can move things around slightly. You can change your perspective to be your superpower and to not trap yourself in with the way you're seeing things. This can be really important. And, there's no wrong to it. There's no reason to beat yourself up. And also just with time, like sometimes I think about like my perspective on working out or a healthy lifestyle or what it meant to live a healthy lifestyle was very different in my 20s than it is now in my 30s. What's important is just so different. And so sometimes I'm like, oh man, I had my perspective like in a totally different spot. It doesn't mean it was all wrong. It probably played a role in that phase of my life, but now my perspective has completely shifted onto, in regards to what's important, in regards to how much exercise is necessary. My perspective has shifted in terms of what I consider to be a success in the fitness realm, right? I used to think, okay, it's not a workout unless you do, a focused, split 6 days a week for an hour and 10, whatever. And it's like, no, I was having a conversation with a client today. It's like, we can be content with waking up in the morning and going for a walk and maybe doing some body weight exercises with some family members on a vacation. And that can be a win just as much as a regimented, progressive overload strength training plan consistently, like just as much as that can be considered a win in terms of movement. Different seasons in your life are going to have things, ebb and flow, and things are going to be different. So you get to choose to see that as your superpower, to say like, okay, I get to make the rules here. And I get to say that there are, oops, my timer went off. I get to say that there are more opportunities for success. It's not just this or this. It's like, no, there's a lot of options for me to see success in this space. So it's like, why not? That alarm, by the way, went off to remind me to do a recovery session with this new method that I've been exploring, and I'll share it more with you in the future. But that's why that alarm went off, is because I ate like an hour ago, and I was like, okay, I'm going to set my alarm for an hour and then do some work and then do a recovery session. So that's what that alarm was. Anyways, so your perspective. This can be changed, and it takes work, and it feels weird, and it feels uncomfortable, and you'll experience resistance, especially if you find yourself in that downward spiral of like, oh my gosh, everything's going wrong. Everything's upside down. It can take work, and it can feel just like, so annoying to look at that other perspective, to find other opportunities for growth, other opportunities for wins when it just might not seem possible. Okay. But oftentimes we have to check our own perspective. We can't wait, like I said, for anyone or anything outside of us to change or do something different in order for us to get a different result and a different experience. We are in control of that. Okay. The last one, R. So we have C, which is core values, P, which is perspective, and R, which is rehearsal. This is where you get after it. This is where you actually go out into the real world and execute your core values and show up with these newfound perspectives and actually become what you say you want to be, right? Try it on a little bit, see how it feels. And, you really have to practice it and rehearse it. And this can be mental rehearsal and also in real life. So when it comes to rehearsal, I really want to emphasize the in real life part, because we can have all of the best intentions and, know our core values and have our perspective. But if we actually don't execute in real life, what's the point? Right? It's like, okay, it's great if you have 6-pack abs. People say, I want to have a tight body. I want to feel this. I want, all this. It's like, okay, well then what are you going to do with it in the real world? Like in your real life, how are you going to execute that and show up as that and embody that and bring those gifts to the world? Like, what are you going to do with your 6-pack abs and your tight butt? Hopefully it's more than just look in the mirror and admire it. Right? So how are you going to be that in real life? Okay. And sometimes that feels like rehearsal. It's practice. It's like, okay, I've been showing up this way. I've been doing one thing. Well, now I want to do something different. And it's going to feel kind of funky and foreign in the beginning. until you really can settle into it and own it and embody it. And then there's also the rehearsal, like the mental rehearsal. I love mental rehearsal. I think it's so helpful, especially with feelings of, at least in my experience, with feelings of anxiety or situations that would generally provoke feelings of anxiety. I like mental rehearsal because it helps me confront some of those feelings before I get there and kind of sit with them before I get into that situation, and then kind of make a game plan of what I'm going to think of instead, or what action I might take in order to eliminate or just kind of reduce some of those feelings. And yeah, so mental rehearsal can be really, really helpful as well. It's like when you consult those core values, you check your perspective. Okay, well, how am I going to show up as if? Sometimes we need to think about it first. We need to slow down, ask ourselves, how would my best self show up? What's going on today? Can I imagine myself walking into this room with this person, or walking into this situation with confidence and courage and clarity and all of that, right? Can I imagine walking into my workout, not feeling nervous or stressed or whatever, knowing what it feels like, having a good game plan, being in that space, rehearsing that, and then also being it in real life, right? So this is all great. These are all really great tools, this C.P.R. acronym, to help you really revive your healthy lifestyle. And I mean, I don't expect you to need C.P.R. every day, but you can always come back to it and just think about it. And when things feel like, you're short of breath and you might feel overwhelmed and it's like, whatever, it's like, okay, can you come back to your core values? What are you telling yourself right now? How can you shift your perspective? Are you using it as your superpower, or are you in that perspective prison while holding the key, right? And then also rehearsal, be it. Become it, rehearse it, do it until it, becomes who you are, and kind of rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, right? There's going to be moments where we need that CPR, and then there's going to be moments again where we need that CPR. So show up for your goals, and hopefully this tool, this CPR acronym, will help you with that revival that you need in your healthy lifestyle. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Self-Love and Sweat, the podcast. Hey, do me a favor. Wherever you're listening to this podcast, give us a review. This really helps a lot. And share this with a friend. I'm only one person, and with your help, we can really spread the message of self-love and sweat and change more lives all around the world. I'm Lunden Souza, reminding you that you deserve a life full of passion, presence, and purpose, fueled by self-love and sweat. This podcast is a Hit Spot Austria production.